Councilmember Borelli.
Thank you. I want to stay on the same line of subject for a minute that Councilmember Drum began, because your answer, Mr. Bowen, to one of the questions about the implicit bias training was that we all have implicit biases and race is a starting point. Can you summarize what my implicit biases are?
I don't know you, sir.
So, but as an organization, the DOE assumes that we all have implicit biases and then spends money to educate teachers and faculty about those. Why is it hard to identify mine?
So we all have implicit bias. You asked me what yours are. I don't know.
No, but you said race was a starting point, so you had a criteria of there is implicit bias against race, but not LGBT, as that was the whole conversation.
May I clarify?
Yep.
Race is a starting point for the implementation of the CRSC pedagogical approach. That's a starting point. The implicit bias work, which is separating that every adult is having implicit. That is not relegated to race. It's just the idea that as a citizen in this society, we've all received messages on how we see the world, and just to interrogate that and to ensure that whatever those biases might be, and they could be different across individuals, that they not come into play as you work with children.
So just staying with the culturally responsive sustaining education, yes, I had to look it up. But one of the principles was high expectations and rigorous instruction. So I want us now just talk about that for a second. And now Debbie will never vouch for anything I say except for this. I did ask you to give me a random number. Yes. I did. So I picked a random school. In this case, we ended up at IS 68. The DOE's rigorous instruction rating that you gave yourself, presumably, says it's excellent, meaning how well curriculum and instruction are designed to engage in students, foster critical thinking. You guys rated yourself excellent. How interesting and challenging is the curriculum? Excellent. How effective is the teaching and learning? Excellent. How well does the school assess what students are learning? Excellent. That's fine. But then when you go to student achievement, you see that in this particular school, you've also said that 88% of kids are ready for the next level. And yet the only sort of objective test in the metrics is performance on state test. And I won't surprise you, but this particular school has an 18% passing rate in English, a 16% passing rate in math, both less than half the city average, both less than half the borough average, in both cases, I think. How do we marry the two ideas that we have rigorous instruction, that our teachers are extremely effective, that all the kids are ready for the next grade, but then on the objective metrics, the state exam, they seem to fail. I mean, 82% fail.
So knowing that our department is made up of various offices that have very specific functions, there are offices that deal specifically with how the matrices that we use to evaluate our schools. We are prepared to talk in depth about teacher preparation, so I'm not prepared to respond to that question this time.
Who is responsible for the failure of students? Let me ask it a different way. In this particular school, what will the PD program be like for a school that clearly has trouble having students pass the state exams? What is the PD like? Do you guys dictate from the top down and say, hey, you should focus on different types of pedagogy that will address this? Or are we doing, for example, the implicit bias training, which may have nothing to do with why these students are failing?
So essentially, we do not dictate professional learning at the school level. The person who is best positioned to make those decisions would be the school principal, and then the person who next in line would be the superintendent, who's a supervisor of that principal. So they would be the ones to really shape and form the content and the specifics.
The principal only got a good, so that's a step down. The principal may not be making the step in the perfect decisions because he or she only has a good rating, whereas the teachers are excellent. Who is responsible for the performance of a school like this? The mayor spent a lot of his political capital in Albany fighting for extensions of mayoral control. Is the mayor essentially responsible for some of these test scores?
There's no one person responsible for test scores.
The mayor wanted accountability. I think most of the stuff he spoke about, mayoral control, rested on how the system needs to have accountability of someone who's elected. I mean, is the mayor then not responsible?
I don't know if this is the binary approach to the questioning is gonna. I don't know if it's serving students. I mean, I think there's definitely increased accountability with this new administration, with the introduction of executive superintendents who supervise superintendents and so forth and so on. So there's definitely accountability. Collectively, I would say that we're all responsible.
Yeah, right. No, I mean I think that's a theme, is that we should blame society and everyone else. But so the mayor has had control of the Department of Education essentially for almost 6 years now. We still have a school. My staff wasn't able to get me the ELA, the English and math test scores from 6 years ago, but I'm going to go on a limb and say maybe they're not any better. If you were here 6 years ago, your predecessors or someone from the DOE, you would have came with an equally ambitious plan for addressing low test scores in schools. At some point, and again, it can't be the teachers and it can't be the principal, because you told me that they are good and excellent. So if it's not the teachers, it's not the principal, where does the accountability lie? Does it lie with the chancellor? Does it lie with the mayor? Or is it just society? I know it's tough, but you said, Mr. Hanna, you said you like to have the tough conversations.
I didn't. What I said was that the conversations are difficult. This one of the things we'd argue is that this is the work, right? The work of teachers and principals and the entire system coming together to figure out those items that you've laid out. And it is the work. It's difficult work. It's complicated work. And we are trying to take it, and we are taking it on. We are taking it head on, and
Thank you.
trying to improve them.
I just think, I have no more questions. I just think that when we talk about improving schools and we say it's really tough to have certain conversations, the conversations that we're not having that are more difficult are that many schools are failing. And I just for my own curiosity, I looked at the high school where the majority of these students from IS 68 go, and unsurprisingly, only 39% of the zoned high school where these kids go are going to produce students that are ready to meet the standards set out by CUNY, meaning they wouldn't need remedial classes. So I think when we talk about the hard conversations that need to happen, I think the hard conversations are on the quality of education that so many of our schools are giving students, and the lack of self-awareness of that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Borelli. I just have a final question because we've got lots of other people who want to testify. Your project for Men Teach, I believe in your testimony it said you're identifying 1,000 people, 1,000 young men. Can you give me a status of where they are, how long the program has been in existence? Of those who have completed the program, how many have actually gone